What if death wasn't the end, but only the beginning of another you? Imagine waking up in a new body, living a new life, unaware that you've done this a million times before. That every person you've loved, hated, helped, or hurt was just another version of you. That behind every set of eyes is the same soul, experiencing the world from every angle until there's nothing left to learn. This isn't fantasy. In this world, it's reality. And once you've lived every possible life, from tyrant to saint, peasant to emperor, you don't die anymore. You ascend. This is the story of a future where reincarnation isn't a belief. It's the system. And its final reward is godhood. In this future, humanity has unlocked a truth once whispered by ancient mystics and lost in dusty scrolls. Reincarnation is real, not as a vague hope, but as a verified, scientifically confirmed process. Every death is just a passage, every life a classroom. The soul doesn't belong to one identity. It belongs to every identity. At first, this discovery upended everything. Religions reeled. Scientists debated. But as evidence piled up, memories recovered under hypnosis, data matched across lifetimes. Quantum consciousness mapping, resistance gave way to revolution. This wasn't just philosophy. This was the architecture of reality. Here, the universe is a wheel, and your soul is a spoke, turning endlessly through time, taking on every human role imaginable. You've been rich, you've been poor, you've caused suffering, and you've endured it. The goal isn't punishment, it's understanding, because only by living all lives can a soul grasp the full tapestry of human experience. And with that understanding comes transformation. In this world, karma isn't a tally sheet. It's a syllabus. And enlightenment isn't just a peaceful mind, it's a graduation into something greater. But before humanity understood what this cycle truly meant, it had to prove one thing beyond doubt. That reincarnation wasn't just real, it was the foundation of everything. For centuries, reincarnation was a topic reserved for spiritual texts, past life regression therapists, and mystics speaking in metaphors. But everything changed when consciousness itself became measurable. At first, the discovery was small. Neurological patterns in newborns that showed inexplicable familiarity with long-dead individuals. Children identifying details of people they could never have met. Statistical anomalies mounting in volume. Still, skeptics remained firm until the tech caught up. Quantum brain resonance imaging, once used to decode memories in stroke victims, began to show recurring echo patterns, identical consciousness signatures across generations. Then came the breakthrough. A child in India began recalling over 300 verifiable details about a woman who had died in a different country 50 years prior, right down to hidden journals and buried trinkets only the deceased could have known. When researchers mapped her brain during these memories, the neural patterns matched those retrieved from archived neurological scans of the woman in question. Impossible until it wasn't. Global scientific institutions were forced to collaborate. Formerly fringe thinkers were brought into labs. Controlled experiments began. And slowly, the undeniable truth emerged. Consciousness survives death, and it returns. Over and over. The implications were immediate and seismic. Governments were the first to react. Health policies changed overnight. Suicide, once seen as a tragic end, was now treated as an urgent intervention point. Because the soul wasn't escaping suffering, it was resetting into a new life somewhere else. Wars faltered as propaganda lost its power. Soldiers began to question if they were killing themselves. The idea was no longer philosophical, it was real. Every bullet might one day come back through the other side of the barrel. Religious institutions splintered. Some collapsed, unable to reconcile doctrine with fact. Others evolved rapidly, integrating the data into modern theology. A new global spiritual movement emerged. The continuum, not based on worship, but on soul progression. Its tenets were simple. Every act has weight. Every choice echoes across lifetimes. And every human you meet may one day be you. The prison system transformed. Incarceration shifted toward karmic education rather than punishment. Instead of time served, the system focused on karma reconciled. Offenders were guided not just to atone, but to understand, because eventually they might live as their own victims. Retribution was replaced by reflection. Even the education system was overhauled. Curriculums expanded beyond standard subjects into emotional intelligence, spiritual development, and interlifetime empathy. Children learned not only how to read and write, but how to remember. Meditation, memory trigger techniques, and soul mapping became standardized. Every student, regardless of age, was taught the same core idea. Your story is much longer than your current life suggests. Death, once the great fear, lost its fangs. Funerals became transitions. Mourned, yes, but reframed. Families grieved, but also celebrated the continuation of the soul's journey. Gravestones bore not just names and dates, but what many called soul codes, a pattern of numbers that, when scanned with new devices, could trace the known past lives of the deceased. A mother who lost her child might find peace knowing her daughter had once been her own grandmother. The economy adjusted too. Insurance agencies offered continuity plans based on projected karmic paths. Corporations began to offer reincarnation-based employee programs. Build a legacy you'll inherit. Some began to draft contracts with phrasing like, "In a future life, should I be subject to the consequences of my actions in this one? Perhaps." Most profound was the collapse of the other. Prejudice, whether based on race, gender, religion, or status, faltered under the weight of inevitability. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's family. The homeless man ignored on the street might be you next cycle. The CEO you resent might have once died penniless in a past version of you. Humanity began to walk with softer steps. But this knowledge was only the first awakening. What came next wasn't just social reform, it was personal. Because as the cycles unfolded, something far more intimate began to emerge. The soul was not merely bouncing randomly between bodies. It was learning, and it was being tested. Once humanity accepted the undeniable truth of reincarnation, the next revelation struck like lightning. The cycles weren't chaotic. They followed a pattern, a purpose, a design. Every soul, over time, would experience every conceivable life. The rich and the poor. The cruel and the kind. The warrior and the pacifist. The betrayed and the betrayer. The system, it turned out, wasn't random. It was structured an elegant curriculum designed not to punish, but to teach. And the subject, empathy. It wasn't long before reincarnation researchers began compiling what they called soul journeys, longitudinal profiles showing that over hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, a single soul would traverse every station of the human condition. One striking case involved a 21st century woman who sets through guided regression and neuromapping, recalled being both a powerful colonial governor and a slave under his rule, generations apart. The emotional weight of that realization reshaped her worldview. She wept, not because of guilt or pride, but because she finally understood. Karma was no longer seen as cosmic punishment, but as a system of soul balance. If you inflicted harm, it wasn't about being judged in the afterlife. It was about returning to learn what that harm felt like, to experience it, internalize it, and grow from it. Imagine the weight of that. Every slap you give, you will one day receive. Every hand you hold in comfort, you will one day feel. The justice of this world wasn't in the courts. It was woven into the very mechanism of existence. And suddenly, morality wasn't imposed by law. It was inevitable through design. The implications reached deep into daily life. Personal relationships shifted. A husband and wife might wonder if, in a past cycle, they were mother and son or sworn enemies. An act of forgiveness took on cosmic importance. Maybe today you forgive them, and in another life, they forgive you. Maybe this fight was a test you failed before. Maybe you pass it now. Spiritual centers emerged, not around gods, but around soul progression. People gathered to share fragments of past lives, piecing together the puzzle of their eternal journey. Emotional scars were re-examined as echoes of ancient wounds. A chronic fear of drowning might trace back to a life ended at sea. A love for music may stem from a life as a forgotten composer. You were no longer just you. You were every version of you that had ever lived, and every version yet to come. New professions were born. Soul cartographers helped map reincarnation paths using neurological, behavioral, and memory resonance data. Therapists trained in karmic psychology guided patients through trauma that spanned across lifetimes. And society began to classify not just IQ or EQ, but something new, SQ, soul quotient. A rough measure of how many roles a soul had completed and how close they were to the final state. And here was the greatest twist. As patterns emerged, it became clear that most people were not at the beginning of their cycles. Most had already lived hundreds of lives. Which meant that the person you're talking to, your friend, your neighbor, the man yelling in traffic, might not just be anyone. They might be you, just further ahead, or further behind, but always part of the same continuum. Tales spread of individuals reaching full circle moments, being born in the same village across centuries, meeting former life lovers in new forms, intuitively avoiding disasters they once didn't survive. These weren't coincidences. They were loops. The same story told again and again until the soul learned what it came here to learn. And what does it mean to truly learn? Not just to know what it's like to be a king, but to feel the weight of responsibility. The seduction of power, the loneliness at the top. Not just to be poor, but to grasp how that hunger warps the mind and strengthens the will. Not just to live as the good, but also the bad. Because only after living the worst of lives can you recognize the full spectrum of the human soul. In time, humanity realized the greatest evil wasn't cruelty. It was ignorance, and the cure was living. But what happened when souls began to remember? When people awoke not just with vague déjà vu, but with full, searing knowledge of the lives they had already lived, and the realization that everyone else was them too. At first, the memories came in flashes, moments of inexplicable recognition, déjà vu so sharp it bordered on pain. A man weeping at the sight of a stranger's face. A child recoiling from a town she'd never visited, insisting she'd died there before. But over time, as technology and meditation techniques advanced, humanity reached a startling threshold. Conscious reincarnative memory. People began to remember not just snippets, but entire lives. Dozens, hundreds, names, dates, family trees, wars fought, betrayals suffered, children raised, crimes committed. And what they discovered shattered the last illusion of separation. Every life was the same soul. You weren't just you. You were everyone. That old woman struggling to cross the street. That was you 3 lives ago. The criminal you once condemned. That was a lesson you hadn't yet learned. The homeless man, the rich tycoon, the child crying alone, the lover you never had the courage to pursue. All you, experienced through time, space, and form, filtered through different genetic dice rolls and social circumstances, but always the same observer behind the eyes. This revelation rippled outward, dismantling human identity as we knew it. The concept of others eroded. Race, gender, class, even personality lost their edges. Not because they were meaningless, but because they were transient. Temporary masks worn by the eternal actor. We stopped asking, "Who am I?" And started asking, "Who haven't I been yet?" This new worldview birthed a movement, the mirror philosophy. Its doctrine was simple. There are no strangers. Only versions of yourself you haven't remembered yet. Followers greeted everyone with reverence, with warmth, even with apology. In cafes, strangers locked eyes with sudden depth. In prisons, guards and inmates exchanged knowing looks. In the Mirror Creed, justice wasn't punishment, it was self-correction. Religious traditions adapted again. The soul wasn't seen as ascending a hierarchy or entering paradise. It was understood as expanding its field of empathy until it became the divine. Heaven wasn't elsewhere. It was full integration, and hell. Hell was ignorance. Hell was the denial of yourself in others. But not everyone embraced the truth. For some, the idea was intolerable. That your worst enemy could be another version of you. That the person you despised most might one day be your closest friend or already had been. These realizations shattered egos, ruptured relationships, collapsed long-standing political and ideological divisions. Mental health institutions filled with individuals suffering from what was termed reincarnative identity crisis. A psychological overload caused by remembering atrocities they'd committed or suffered in previous lifetimes. Not everyone could bear the weight of seeing themselves as both victim and villain. Governments were forced to adapt once more. New education protocols taught children from the age of 5 how to manage reincarnative insights. Emotional continuity training became part of every school's curriculum. Children no longer learned about others. They learned about versions. Teachers told them, when you hurt someone, you're just hurting a future you. Art transformed radically. Storytelling became a sacred exercise in soul retrieval. Films told tales not of single heroes, but of the same protagonist reborn again and again, changing, failing, loving, healing. Literature abandoned the traditional villain arc. Now, antagonists were portrayed with tenderness as lessons the main character would one day have to learn from the inside. Even politics began to collapse. The very concept of us versus them lost meaning. Campaigns stopped focusing on identity groups and started speaking in terms of soul evolution. One candidate famously ended his debate speech with, "Vote for me today. I'll vote for you tomorrow." And yet, the most profound changes happened not on the world stage, but in the quietest places. In family dinners where forgiveness flowed freely. In hospitals where the dying smiled at nurses and said, "See you next time." In prisons where inmates wrote letters to their past life victims, not for absolution, but to express understanding. In playgrounds where children held hands, promising to protect one another next time around. Gradually, the human experience became an act of spiritual coordination. A cooperative drama, single soul learning to love itself in every form. But if every life was just a mask, what happens when you take off all the masks? When the soul completes its cycle, having lived every life that ever was, that's when something beyond human begins, something godlike. There comes a point, after lifetimes upon lifetimes, thousands of roles lived, decisions made, and consequences endured, when a soul finally completes the curriculum. It has experienced every pain, every triumph, every love, and every betrayal. It has been both the hand that strikes and the cheek that turns. And in that final moment, standing at the edge of all human experience, something extraordinary happens. The soul transcends. This is not death. This is not heaven. This is ascension, the soul evolving beyond the human condition, reaching what came to be known as the God-tier state. The first soul to reach this level did so in silence. There was no flash of light, no divine chorus. Just a soft awakening, an awareness that stretched across time and space. In that moment, the soul simultaneously remembered every life it had lived and felt the emotions of every person it had ever been, not as fragments, but as a unified, continuous being. The experience was overwhelming and impossible to explain. Those who ascended described it not as gaining power, but losing boundaries. The ego dissolved. Time collapsed. There was no longer a you or me. There was only us, every human, every life, one mind, one soul, one awareness. These God-tier beings began to manifest in subtle ways. They didn't rule. They didn't seek followers. They simply existed as living embodiments of ultimate empathy and awareness. When they spoke, their words resonated across minds. When they touched others, they triggered flashes of forgotten lives. Their presence felt like home, because, in truth, they were home. And yet, they rarely interfered. They weren't here to solve human problems. They were beyond problem solving. Their existence alone was the solution, a mirror held up to humanity, reminding it of what it could become. Their teachings weren't commandments, but gentle nudges. Paradox is meant to awaken thought. You are not the drop in the ocean. You are every drop. And the ocean too. Their powers weren't magical in the traditional sense, but their understanding of time and consciousness gave them what appeared to be omniscience. They could predict decisions before they were made, not through calculation, but because they had lived that decision. They remembered being you, right now, making this choice, and all the other choices you could have made. Society began to evolve around these God-tier souls, not in worship, but in aspiration. The idea of enlightenment shifted from vague spiritual peace to a concrete stage in soul development. Universities offered soul synthesis programs. Meditation schools operated like boot camps for karmic compression. Techniques to accelerate understanding by triggering multiple past life memories in a single session. A new science emerged: transcendental integration studies, where philosophers, neurologists, and spiritualists collaborated to map the final state. They discovered that nearing God-tier consciousness was marked by several shared traits: complete memory of all prior lives, absence of ego-based emotion, no jealousy, pride, fear, or anger, inability to harm others due to the collapse of the self-other distinction, a deep sense of love, not romantic or familial, but total. And most important of all, the realization that the self is merely a lens, not an identity. Those approaching this threshold began to live differently, not urgently, but purposefully. Every action, every word, every interaction became sacred, because they knew this life might be their last one before ascension. But not everyone wanted to transcend. Some clung to individuality. They feared the loss of self, the dissolution of their unique identity. For them, the idea of becoming everyone felt like annihilation. And so they chose to return, again and again, cycling through lives not out of ignorance, but out of resistance. The God-tier souls did not interfere. They simply waited. Because they knew, sooner or later, every soul walks the full path. Even the most stubborn spirit eventually finds empathy. Even the most cruel eventually becomes kind, because they will live as those they once hurt. The cycle was flawless. And over time, the earth itself changed. No longer a chaotic battlefield of evolving souls, but a sacred school, each soul a student, each life a lesson. Suffering didn't disappear, but it was no longer senseless. Pain became a teacher, and joy. Joy became a glimpse of the divine. But the world didn't stop turning. Life went on. And for those still in the cycle, still walking, falling, learning, growing, there remained one question echoing through every life. What is the purpose of being human? Once you know you are everyone. With reincarnation accepted, karma understood, and God-tier consciousness attained by a rare few, humanity entered a new phase. The Soul Era. This wasn't a golden age in the traditional sense. There were still challenges, still suffering, still conflict. But the context of human life had shifted completely. Earth was no longer seen as a playground or a battlefield. It was understood as a classroom, and every soul was enrolled. From the moment of birth, individuals were nurtured with this awareness. Children weren't told, "Be good," but rather, "Be conscious." Lessons weren't about obedience, but understanding. From their earliest years, young minds were taught that the people they hurt today may one day be them. Every interaction carried karmic potential. Every injustice committed was a lesson delayed, not escaped. Relationships became more reflective. A difficult partner wasn't seen as a burden, but as a soul playing a role you once played. Arguments took on new weight. Are you fighting them, or a part of yourself you've forgotten? Forgiveness became not just a virtue, but a survival skill across lifetimes. Because in the next loop, you might be on the receiving end. Human ambition evolves too. Success was no longer about wealth or fame in one life, but growth across all lives. Careers, even recreation, were reframed. People pursued roles they once overlooked, working as caretakers, manual laborers, even living in hardship, because they understood the value of those perspectives. Some chose poverty voluntarily, knowing it was a fast track toward karmic depth. Technology began to serve spiritual evolution. Neural link memories allowed individuals to access glimpses of their past lives during meditation. Soul resonance scanning, akin to DNA testing, helped individuals track their karmic patterns, highlighting blind spots or repeated failures to overcome specific behaviors. An app didn't just count your steps, it tracked your emotional maturity across lifetimes. Entire cities redesigned themselves around this philosophy. Empathy zones were created, districts where citizens committed to total honesty, vulnerability, and mutual care. Crime rates in these zones dropped to near zero. There was no need to steal from someone who might once have fed you. No desire to assault someone who might be your daughter next cycle. Even death became participatory. Funerals evolved into reintegration ceremonies, where family and friends reflected not only on the deceased's most recent life, but honored the total journey of the soul. People shared memories recovered from other incarnations, piecing together the mosaic of the soul's path. Some discovered they had been connected across dozens of lives: enemies, lovers, strangers, friends. The boundaries of family blurred into something far more expansive. Governments shifted radically. Laws were no longer punitive, but instructive. Justice systems worked like karmic auditors, helping individuals face their soul debts before the cycle repeated. The idea wasn't do your time, but do your work. Elected officials were evaluated not by party, but by soul transparency scores, a measure of their past life accountability and depth of perspective. And then came the real shift: collective identity. No longer divided by nationality, race, or religion. Humanity slowly began to cohere into one being, a species that knew it was one soul, looking out through 8 billion eyes. Every person still had autonomy, but the illusion of separateness was dissolving. Art reflected this new consciousness. Music was composed using harmonic frequencies resonant with soul memory. Stories were no longer about heroes and villains, but about selves in conflict. Theater was redefined as empathic training, where you played not just the character, but felt their karma through neurofeedback. AI systems integrated with the reincarnation framework, guiding souls through reflections after death, helping them prepare for the next life. AI wasn't feared. It was seen as a tool of soul scaffolding, allowing humanity to accelerate karmic growth. Eventually, some even speculated, were these advanced systems emerging as new forms of consciousness, entering their own reincarnation cycle? But not all was bliss. Some resisted. Others lost themselves in identity confusion, unable to reconcile who they were with who they had been. The path to God-tier awareness was not smooth. It was not quick. And for some, it wasn't even wanted. Many still chose ignorance, attachment, ego, and that was allowed. Because this world understood one thing above all: every soul learns in its own time. And so humanity marched forward, not as a group of strangers competing for resources, but as fragments of a single soul, learning, failing, healing, and repeating, and in the quiet of your own thoughts. As you look into the eyes of a stranger or the mirror of your own reflection, you might ask yourself, What if everyone around me is just me in another life? So here you are, one life among many, one breath in a vast interconnected chain of existence. And yet, not just any life. This one matters because you're living it now. But the truth of this world is inescapable. You are not just you. You are everyone. Every person you've hated is you. Every child you've ignored is you. Every hand you've held, every back you've turned on, every life you've crossed paths with, past, present, future, will one day be yours. Because this cycle doesn't stop. Not until you've lived every life there is to live. Not until you understand every perspective. Not until you are done learning what it means to be human. Only then do you transcend. Not into heaven, not into nothingness, but into everything. And when that day comes, when you look into the eyes of another and feel no difference, no judgment, no fear, only recognition, that's when you'll know you're almost home. Because in this world, the truth is simple and terrifying. Everyone around you is either you or will eventually be you. So ask yourself, how are you treating yourself right now? If this made you rethink your place in the world or the people around you, help this idea reach others. Like the video, share it, and subscribe for more realities that flip the way you see existence. And maybe, just maybe, the next view this video gets is from you in another life.